Hello and welcome to another episode of Snakes Territory. I'm Jesse Friedman alongside Jack Summers. And Jack, it's been a few days since we've done an episode. It feels like we have a dizzying amount of news to get to. And we are going to talk about the Rockies series, the Diamondbacks taking 2 of 3, not quite being able to finish the sweep. But first, Jack, let's go ahead and start with some news. Corbin Carroll, I guess, is the biggest topic happening right now, as he is kind of in an unknown situation right now. The Diamondbacks originally said that they were just going to give him that one day off in Toronto, and he was expected to play throughout the weekend against the Rockies. And then that did not happen. We did not see Corbin Carroll play at all in this Rockies series over the weekend. And now we have received word that Carroll is going to get an MRI on that left hand, where he took a pitch in the game on Wednesday in Toronto. He's getting an MRI prior to this White Sox series. And it's I know you expressed some concern with Gabriel Moreno's situation, Jack. That wound up being very much warranted. We're going to talk about Moreno more here in a little bit, but you never feel great when Corbin Carroll's health is in question.
Especially with the ever-shifting sands of prognosis. You know, he's going to be able to play the next day, and then he can't, and he's getting better, but needs another day, and it's Coors Field, get him off his feet, and then he needs another day. And then on Saturday, we were told that he can't actually swing or grip the bat appropriately, which was Torey's exact words. So that really means that he's having trouble gripping the bat. And if he can't grip the bat, he can't hit. So that's where they're at with that, and he's going to get that MRI. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it doesn't turn up anything that did not show up on the x-rays. One piece of information I was able to confirm was that this is the first MRI. He's only had one prior x-ray. One interesting little note on Gabby was that he actually had a first MRI very shortly after he had the x-ray. And it was second MRI that turned up the hairline fracture. So, there's nothing to be critical of as far as the team's efforts to try to get to the root cause of what was going on with Gabby. And they're clearly doing the same thing now with Carroll. They didn't force him into the lineup. They didn't make him play. And he's not tried to play through a severe injury. So he'll have that MRI in Chicago, presumably in the morning. And we're hopeful that we'll have some clarification by Monday afternoon. That clarification may come in the way of a roster move and an IL stint for Corbin Carroll if it's bad news. If it's not bad news, potentially, then it's just another day or two and he'll be able to get back out there. So fingers crossed, everyone, on Corbin Carroll.
It sounds like the decision to have him go through and get this MRI was maybe partially due to Gabriel Moreno's situation, that the D-backs didn't initially think that anything big was wrong with Gabby. But then, as you said, there was this x-ray, then there was an MRI, and then there was another MRI, and eventually they discovered the hairline fracture. But with Corbin, I don't think they're necessarily quite as concerned from what they've seen, but given what just happened with Gabby Moreno, they want to play it safe, and you can certainly understand that. I guess that takes us into the Gabby Moreno news, Jack, which is also new since our last episode. The Diamondbacks got bad news on Gabby Moreno when he had his MRI a few days back. Unfortunately, the team did have to make a roster move. They brought in Aramis Garcia. They also made just another move just a few moments before we recorded that we'll get to in a second. But Gabby Moreno, Jack, is on the IL. We don't have a ton of clarity yet on exactly how long it's going to be, but Torey Lovullo did say weeks and not days.
They did not give specific timeline. I mean, the usual minimum time for bone to heal is 4 to 6 weeks, but this is the pointer finger, and it's this section down here on the pointer finger.
Right, below the knuckle.
Below the knuckle, where he has the hairline fracture. So it's hard to say exactly how long that's going to take. I'm not really that familiar with those types of injuries. But usually when we're looking at bone takes 4 to 6 weeks to heal. Everyone heals at a different rate. And maybe you get to a certain point where it's just a matter of pain tolerance and you don't have to worry about refracturing or re-injuring the knuckle, the bone below the knuckle there. So that's all up to the doctors to figure out. I'm sure he'll have the best possible advice there when it comes to that. But Gabriel Moreno's a 2-WAR catcher already this year, based on Fangraphs, which favors him a little bit more than Baseball Reference because Fangraphs uses the StatCast fielding metrics, which give him more credit for framing. But the reason Gabby's Baseball Reference WAR is considerably lower than it is at Fangraphs is due to the different defensive rating. So homers that we are, let's go with the Fangraphs rating. Bottom line is he's a 2-WAR catcher already this year, which means for a full year he's close to a 4-WAR catcher. His bat was just really coming around before this injury occurred. It's a tough blow for the team that is now cycling through backup catchers and failed major league catchers that are 30-something years old in AAA to try to fill in the gap. And it's replacement level at best. You just hope that they're not, whoever they end up giving the most playing time to is not below replacement level. But losing Gabby for a month or 6 weeks could easily cost them a win or two in the standings once it's all totaled up by the end of the year.
Well, we got word shortly before we started recording this episode that the Diamondbacks had acquired a catcher. This came out from Ken Rosenthal on Sunday afternoon. He said that catcher James McCann has been released by the Atlanta Braves so that he could sign a major league deal with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So this is not just a minor league depth move, Jack. This is a guy that we're expecting to see on the major league roster. We don't know what the corresponding move is going to be just yet, although it is worth noting that Aramis Garcia does not have any minor league options. So the Diamondbacks would have to designate him for assignment if that's the direction they want to go there. But yeah, James McCann, a name that people are probably somewhat familiar with. He's been around baseball for quite some time, has not played at all in the majors this season, but down in AAA for the Atlanta Braves, he had 297 with an 824 OPS. Has a decent track record offensively, Jack, a 93 OPS plus with the Baltimore Orioles a season ago, but defensively has never been the most well-regarded catcher that you'll find.
What this tells me is that the Diamondbacks probably don't put a lot of stock in StatCast catching metrics, because if they do, McCann would not have been their choice. I mean, the StatCast catching metrics are quite unfavorable to him, especially on the framing end, but he doesn't help himself in the blocking metrics there either. He's not above average in throwing, and it all adds up to a catcher that's put up quite a few negative fielding run value in his career and as recently as last year. So let's hope that the Diamondbacks know something that the people collecting the StatCast defensive metrics of catcher do not know.
Yeah, I'm looking at those numbers right now. James McCann in 2024, pretty decent sample, 233 plate appearances he had with the Orioles. He was at -6 blocks above average on Baseball Savant, -5 framing runs above average. So those numbers are both not great. And you look back a few seasons and you see negative trends there in general. Blocking in particular, he's graded out heavy negative in blocking every single season. He's had some years with framing where he actually graded out okay. But yeah, this is certainly not a move, Jack, that you make for James McCann's defense. I think we can say that pretty safely. But on the other side, James McCann, had a 667 OPS a year ago with the Orioles. And it's worth noting that he's a right-handed hitter with some pop. And the past couple years in Baltimore, entering this season where they changed it, it was very difficult for a right-handed hitter to pull a home run, given the changes they made to the wall out there. So I think the 667 OPS probably sells James McCann a little bit short. And that actually could be a pretty significant upgrade for the D-backs because, let's face it, Jose Herrera has never hit much in the big leagues. And as we discussed in our last show, Aramis Garcia, while he's put up good numbers in AAA this year, his track record in the majors is not particularly good either. So, maybe it's a situation where you're like, all right, James McCann is not going to be a great defender, but frankly, neither Jose Herrera nor Aramis Garcia are, plus or plus type catchers defensively. So you're just trying to recoup as much offensive value there as you can, I suppose.
Fair enough. Let's just hope that they just decide to go with this Shelby Miller fastball heavy usage that he's been using lately, and that he doesn't end up throwing too many splitters to McCann.
Yeah, maybe that's why Shelby's been so fastball heavy lately. Is they're like, hey, we might bring in this catcher and his blocking track record isn't great, so let's get your fastball dialed in. Anyway, we're joking on that front. Well, hey, the Diamondbacks did just play a series against the Colorado Rockies. We are going to dive into that. We're also going to dive into HB 2704, a bill that passed in the Senate just a couple days ago and is very important for the Diamondbacks in securing their future long term here in Arizona. So we are going to dive into all of those topics on the other side of this break.
People liked this last time, so we're going to do it again. Read one of the fantastic, unique, creative recipes, dishes on HelloFresh. Creamy Alfredo truffle cavatappi pasta?
Cavatappi, maybe? But I'll just go with the Indian-inspired chicken paired with turmeric rice. That sounds awesome. And everything about this is delicious, fresh, comes in a little bag. And I like to cook, so I like to chop up the ingredients. I like to throw stuff in the pan, mix it up. It makes me feel like I'm doing something, Scott, and they always come out amazing.
Yes, you can be a star at home with America's #1 meal kit. Make your summer enjoyable and delicious by signing up for HelloFresh at HelloFresh.com/FT10FM and get 10 free meals with a free item for life. That's HelloFresh.com/FT10FM for 10 free meals and a free item in every box. 1 per box with an active subscription. Free meals are applied as a discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan.
Well, Jack, Diamondbacks fans everywhere, I think, breathed a slight sigh of relief early in the weekend as HB 2704 officially passed in the Arizona State Senate. 19-11 was the final vote tally there. And this is somewhat old news at this point. People probably know the gist of the situation here. But Jack, very important that this got through. Felt like passing this bill passing in the Senate was kind of the last hurdle for the Diamondbacks to overcome as they try to secure a long-term home here at in Arizona and at Chase Field more specifically.
Well, it is politics, and there can be wrinkles and last-minute changes and about faces. You never know what's going to happen. So while this is certainly a huge step forward for the Diamondbacks prospects to get the funding of the tax via the tax recapture mechanism that they've been seeking, it's certainly not over yet. The bill needs to go back to the House because it has changed considerably since it was voted on initially and passed by the House. Once that happens, it's expected to pass in the House again. Of course, they already passed it once.
Right.
And then it'll move on to the governor's desk to be signed. Once that happens, then the Diamondbacks can then go ahead and renegotiate their lease at Chase Field with funding mechanism in place. For those that aren't familiar, tax recapture, essentially what this is recapturing the taxes paid by the Diamondbacks on revenue at Chase Field, as well as some player and employee salary income tax. All of that money would, instead of going into state and city and county coffers, will go into a fund used to renovate and upgrade Chase Field where necessary. The mechanism calls for up to $500 million from the government via the tax recapture, and the Diamondbacks are committing to $250 million of their own money. Some of the dissent, the vote in the Senate was 19-11, and Derek Hall was on Arizona Sports Radio and kind of pushing back on some of the dissenting voters for not fully understanding what's the intended usage there. I'm not going to get into that right now. My suggestion is if somebody wants to know more details, our very good friend Alex Weiner did some excellent coverage over on Arizona Sports. So I would Google Alex Weiner, HB 2704, and you can find some really good detail about it there. The guy hit a home run in nailing the details. But, bottom line here is that the D-backs have gotten through a major hurdle, and they're on the right path. And it certainly looks like the D-backs are here to stay for the rest of my lifetime. Hopefully yours as well, Jesse.
Yeah, I was talking with Alex the other night, and he had the great misfortune of watching the entire Senate meeting. I think basically all the way through, and it took hours and hours and hours. I think after 10 p.m. is when this vote was actually cast on Thursday night. So it took a while. For those of you who actually chose to live stream a good portion of this, unfortunately, you won't get any of those hours back. But you might have been treated, Jack, to some incredible poetry. A couple of the senators who opposed the bill presented poems, which I believe came courtesy of ChatGPT. And you can read those. You can read those poems over in a story at the Arizona Republic. It made me chuckle for sure. But anyway, this is a really big step for the Diamondbacks. We all saw what happened with the Coyotes last year. And I think that probably played a role here as well, as politicians realize, like, okay, it is a real threat that we could actually lose one of our major pro sports teams to another market. We're not going to let that happen. We're going to work through the details here. There was bipartisan support, which is always a great thing to see. So big news on that front. We'll continue to keep you all updated on that situation for sure. Well, Jack, jumping into some actual baseball games here. The Diamondbacks, they were not able to do the thing. They were not able to complete the sweep over the Colorado Rockies as they dropped the Sunday game by a final score of 4-2. Brandon Pfaadt was cruising along, pitching as well as we've seen in a long time through the first 4 innings of this game. And then, as we have seen at times with him in the past, things just kind of unraveled in the 5th inning. He gave up 3 singles, I believe it was, to start the inning. None of them hit particularly hard, and then Mickey Moniak got a hold of one, hit a 3-run homer, which ultimately flipped a 2-0 D-backs advantage to a 4-2 deficit, and the D-backs were not able to overcome that the rest of the way.
Ironically, Brandon Pfaadt, who we've been begging to get softer contact from, only allowed 3 balls hit over 100 miles per hour, and only 6 of the 16 put in play were over 95 miles an hour, which is what we classify as hard hit. So I was getting all excited to be able to talk and write about that until that 5th inning happened, unfortunately. Ironically, when we look at hard hit balls, Pfaadt had the 4th highest number coming into today at 127 hard hit balls. The second highest was Anthony Sensatella with 133. And Pfaadt let up 3 hard hit balls, 3 balls over 100 miles an hour, and Sensatella let up 5. So there you go. I mean, sometimes you just can't really predict baseball and what's going to happen. Here we are on a hot day with the wind blowing out. You would expect actually a lot more run scoring. Instead, all we got was 1 bad inning from Brandon Pfaadt and a game where the D-backs bats were not able to do anything, although they were certainly very undermanned.
Yeah, I think that's the larger story in this game, Jack, is that the offense just really did not show up. And yeah, I mean, frankly, this Diamondbacks lineup feels pretty different when Ketel Marte is not in there. Corbin Carroll, as we discussed earlier, his injury situation is to be determined. Gabriel Moreno, of course, is now on the IL. And then Torey decided to sit Lourdes Gurriel Jr. as well. I was comparing the Rockies lineup and the D-backs lineup before the game started, and I was like, I'd still take the D-backs lineup over the Rockies lineup, but the gap is not nearly as large as it usually is when the D-backs are at full strength. So, I think there's maybe some room for, like, I know Diamondbacks fans were not too happy about that. There's nothing Torey could do about Corbin Carroll's situation, certainly, but you wonder, Jack, if like maybe you got to bite the bullet and play Ketel Marte all 3 days in Colorado if Corbin Carroll isn't available for any of the games. That's not to say the D-backs necessarily would have won this game if Ketel was in the starting lineup, but I think those are just the natural questions that people think about when the offense doesn't do much on a day like this.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to, who's making the calls here, right? The medical team, are they making the call, or was it Torey? Torey said he had a sleepless night debating it in his mind, so clearly he has some say over it. But he would have had to go back and advocate and push back on the medical team pretty hard because this, everyone gets a day off in Coors Field amongst the starters. Naylor had a day off, of course. So, this is where they're at with the way they manage their health. and they're thinking of the full season, and there's still a lot of games left, 86 or 7 games left to go. So I can understand where they're coming from. They do have a track record to fall back on where, if not occurring in Coors Field immediately following a Coors Field trip, Ketel's gotten hurt, whether it's his back, his groin, his hamstrings in the past. So, they don't want to repeat history. And as much as it hurts to lose this game and see their playoff odds dwindle yet more, at the end of the day, if Ketel Marte ends up back on the injured list, it's going to be a lot worse.
Yeah, that's fair. Antonio Senzatella pitched pretty well in the game, 5 1/3, 2 runs there. Randall Grichuk, while the D-backs offense was largely silent, Randall Grichuk did have a nice day, going 2 for 3 with a double and a couple of runs batted in there. Expanding the conversation to the series as a whole here, Jack. D-backs win 2 out of 3. It is a series win, but with the state of this Rockies team, winning 2 out of 3 kind of feels like a series loss in a way. This was an opportunity for the D-backs to really gain some ground and create some forward momentum. And by no means a disastrous outcome. Taking 2 out of 3 is totally fine, but it was not the push forward that a lot of people were looking for.
I don't have the same expectations, or didn't have the same expectations coming into the series. The Rockies were 8-8 in their previous 16 games. They're playing a lot better. They're playing very scrappy. Every time you saw them knock down a ball that maybe a better fielder would have easily caught, but they stayed with it. They made the throw. They came back on Zach Gallen in the first game after being down quite a bit. They fight hard. They're playing hard. They're not a team that you just should expect to waltz into their home ballpark and sweep. It's not a realistic expectation, especially when you yourself are undermanned. So for me, while it was disappointing to lose the series finale, winning 2 out of 3 is going to have to be good enough. And it's going to have to be probably good enough against most of the teams that they face coming up here. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's give, props to Eugenio Suarez, the 2-homer game. Getting the 300 home runs was just a fabulous moment for him, very touching. Ketel Marte, 7 for 11 in the series with a homer, 6 RBIs, 4 doubles. Yes, why'd they sit him? But, I think he had 10 hits in his previous 3 games, had his batting average up to 311, his OPS back up over 1,000. He's up to 2.8 baseball reference WAR. I mean, the guy has just been an absolute beast. So those are the positive things to take away from those first couple games. And I'll let you riff on Mr. Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly there for a bit.
Yeah, I think Zach Gallen was not good on Friday. The Diamondbacks won more in spite of him than because of him. And granted, I mean, it was like 100 degrees outside. The ball was flying as much as it probably ever flies at Coors Field. And Zach his outing started pretty well. Through 4 innings, he was in a decent spot. But yeah, we saw it happen again, where things just unraveled for him very quickly. His final line, as you can see here, 5 innings, 10 hits, 7 runs. And we are now at a point, Jack, with Zach Gallen's outing on Friday and Brandon Pfaadt's outing on Sunday. There are 72 qualified starters in the major leagues right now. And the 2 worst pitchers by ERA are Zach Gallen and Brandon Pfaadt. Zach Gallen's 5.60 ERA is the worst ERA in baseball among qualified starters, and Pfaadt is at 5.49 and is just right there next to him at number 71. So, for anyone who's wondering why are the Diamondbacks just around 500 when they have this awesome offense, it's because, 2 of their 5 starters have the 2 worst ERAs in baseball and have been durable. I mean, these guys have not been hurt. They've been healthy and just have not been able to execute.
They're certainly part of the issue of why they're 500. Of course, one of the league's worst bullpens and losing Corbin Burns and so forth. I mean, those are fairly large contributors as well. And we haven't even spoken about Eduardo Rodriguez because he didn't pitch in this series. So, it's just pitching in general. A note about Gallen, and I have 7 of the balls in play, 7 of the balls hit against him were over 100 miles per hour. 11 of the 20 were over 95. So that has nothing to do with Coors Field. I mean, unless you want to say, his breaking pitches and his curveball's not breaking as much. But I mean, how fast the ball's traveling off the bat doesn't get any help from the thin air. How far it goes is another issue. But in this case, the home runs that he gave up were 467 and 452 feet. So, you lop 5 to 10% off that distance, they're still home runs.
Right.
So that's kind of just where that's at.
Speaking positively for a second, the bullpen did have a nice bounce back series, Jack, after things were pretty disastrous in Toronto. Yes, it is the Rockies, but it is also Coors Field. 10 innings pitched combined between the 3 games, only 3 hits and 1 run allowed, 1 walk to 14 strikeouts. You saw Ryan Thompson get some really big outs in the game on Saturday. You saw Kevin Ginkel throw a couple of scoreless innings in the series as well. Those are good signs for the D-backs, even though they were not able to complete the sweep. It would really do wonders for this bullpen if even just Ryan Thompson and Kevin Ginkel got back on track, and this was a step in the right direction for them.
Yeah, I also want to mention Juan Murillo. When he came in relief on Friday, he struck out the side in order.
Yeah.
That was pretty impressive. And, of course, Shelby Miller was lights out in his, there was a bunt and a throwing error to put a man on second base. But, he struck out everybody that he faced after that and got out of the inning as well. There was 2 strikeouts and a pop out, but I can't remember exactly. Bottom line is that Shelby Miller's fastball was electric, and he had guys swinging and missing like crazy.
Just to hit on Eugenio Suarez again, because he really stole the show with the 2-homer game and hitting number 300. What an amazing milestone for him. Just one of 12 active major leaguers who have 300 home runs. I think we're at the point, Jack, where Gino has to be an all-star. I mean, Manny Machado is probably going to start the game. He's going to get all the votes. I think it's fine if Manny Machado starts. He's had an excellent season. But I don't think there's any case to be made that Eugenio Suarez shouldn't be an all-star this year. I mean, Matt Chapman has had a good year when healthy. You know what he does defensively. But Gino leads baseball, all of Major League Baseball, as of the time of recording, with 67 RBI. The 25 home runs, of course, is up there among the league leaders as well. I believe that's 4th. And compared to other third basemen in the National League, the 25 homers and 67 RBI, I mean, no one's even remotely close on either of those numbers. Manny Machado has 12 home runs right now. So I think Gino's got to be an all-star, Jack. I don't know if it's going to happen, but the numbers make a pretty clear case at this point.
Yeah, I mean, once you get past phase 1 and 2, how the reserves end up getting chosen, and it's very convoluted and complicated. And of course, you have the commissioner's office picks to get guys into the game and make sure you have one player from every team. So it remains to be seen whether he gets in. He's certainly deserving, and he certainly would be fun to have there. Just another feel-good story for a feel-good guy. I think he would be a great addition to the home run derby as well. By the way, if everyone's worried about the home run derby throwing guys' swings off, most studies have actually subsequently shown that that's merely regression to the mean. Guys get to the home run derby because they had really big power first halves, and most guys are going to drop off from that pace. I mean, sure, Gino's hit 49 home runs in his career before. He's on a 50-something home run pace right now. But the odds are that even if he doesn't go to the home run derby, he's probably not going to hit 50 homers. Probably going to see that pace drop off in the second half. So, don't tie it to any home run derby if he does get there.
I don't know, Jack. Are you hating on my on-pace stats again? You're not respecting the on-pace stats?
Not hating on them, but, regression to the mean is a real thing in baseball. Yeah, I mean, regression to the mean for Eugenio Suarez means he's probably still going to be a 40-homer guy this year. Right. I mean, it's very reasonable to expect him to hit a dozen or 15 more homers over, the remaining games of the season. Certainly. I think the preseason projections called for him to hit 20-something this year. He's already blown by his full season projection. So, maybe the projection was a little behind the curve on where Gino's at. One point about Gino, I kind of hesitate to say it because I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm going to mention it because it's my duty as a reporter. So Eugenio Suarez is doing one thing differently this year that's not necessarily a positive, but it hasn't negatively impacted his production, which is he's chasing more than he ever has in his career. His chase rate, swinging at pitches outside the zone, is at an all-time high for him. I believe it's up around 30%. Whereas for most of his career, he was in the 80th percentile, which is a good number of not chasing. This year, it's 32%. Last year's 59%. So there is a trend here that if other teams pick up on, expect to see him face a lot more breaking pitches outside the zone, getting him to fish. I think teams are just getting to the point pretty soon, or they got to. They're not going to throw anything near the strike zone until he stops hacking at it. So, hopefully hopefully he makes a very quick adjustment if teams adjust to him that way. And maybe he will. I mean, this is all part of the plan. But he's been hacking at a lot of pitches outside the zone and chasing a lot of pitches compared to his usual production in that area.
It is ironic that the Diamondbacks, really their two biggest breakout hitters this season, both are chasing outside the zone more than ever before. Corbin Carroll's in the exact same category, right? He has a 32% chase rate himself, and yet he's having, far and away the best season we've seen from him offensively. So yeah, definitely something to monitor. I think a very fair concern on that front. We are going to preview the Diamondbacks' upcoming series against the Chicago White Sox. We're also going to spy on an old friend, see what Slade Cecconi is up to these days over in Cleveland since the Diamondbacks traded him this offseason. We will do all of that on the other side of this break.
FT fam, did you know that Huel has sold over 500 million meals around the world, and now it is your turn to try it. While I drink it.
Drink up, Scott, so I can discuss Huel and how I love it. I had some for breakfast this morning. I like to drink it post-workout because of the protein included in it. It always tastes delicious, whether it's strawberry, banana, chocolate, vanilla, whatever the flavor is. It tastes like a dessert, honestly. It should not taste as good as it does.
I agree. New customers get 15% off plus a free gift at Huel.com when you use the FT code. That is FOUL, F-O-U-L, at Huel.com/FOUL. Don't miss out. Try Huel today for a perfectly balanced meal. If you miss a meal, if you're looking for a little protein boost, you just saw me drinking the Black Edition, ready to drink. There's the vanilla flavor. I love what the chocolate brings to the table. It's really damn good. So give it a shot, FT fam. 15% off plus a free gift for new customers with the code FOUL.
Well, Jack, when the Diamondbacks traded Slade Cecconi over the offseason, I was not all that surprised. I think we all knew that, as odd as it is to say now, that pitching was an area of depth for the Diamondbacks. It seemed fairly likely they would make a move in that regard. But when I saw that Slade was being sent to the Cleveland Guardians, the first thought that came to my mind was like, all right, there's no way Slade Cecconi doesn't see drastic improvement going to that organization, which really has a reputation as kind of being a pitching factory across the league. And it is still early, Jack. We don't want to make a rush judgment here on Slade Cecconi, having made 7 starts, I believe it is, so far with the Cleveland Guardians, but he delivered 7 scoreless innings in his game here on Sunday. And for the season, he now has a 3.38 ERA as a starter with the Cleveland Guardians.
I am just almost silenced by the disparity between the Cleveland Guardians' ability to develop and fix pitchers compared to the Diamondbacks. It's actually a little frustrating, a little disheartening to see that happen. I mean, I'm going to fully admit that when the trade happened, I was, okay, fine. They had to give up somebody. It didn't break my heart at the time, so I'm not sitting here second guessing the move to trade him. But it's certainly very frustrating to see a talented young pitcher be unable to get over the hump and be unable to develop here in Arizona and do exactly that with the Cleveland Guardians. It's just one more data point to pile onto a lot more other data points that indicate that the Diamondbacks need to top down figure out how to fix their pitching development system.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Slade's last 4 starts, as you see here on the screen, 22 innings, a 2.05 ERA, a 1.18 WHIP. So he is really heated up here recently. And yeah, I think for me, Jack, I viewed Slade as being kind of a good candidate, honestly, for a change of scenery. I don't know exactly what happened with him last year, but they messed around with some different roles, and it was a little bit unclear exactly how he was going to help the team. The Diamondbacks decided to just make him a reliever toward the end, and I was very much expecting that to work, and it really didn't. It was kind of weird. It felt like kind of a mental issue for him at a certain point. I've always liked this stuff and figured he had an opportunity to be a starter at the big league level, but it just didn't work for him. And yeah, I mean, obviously there's been a quick turnaround here. I will mention that going into his start today, he had a 5.77 expected ERA. So there has been quite a bit of hard contact there. I know his home run rate is also a little on the higher end. So don't take this as us saying that, the Guardians have turned Slade Cecconi into the ace of their staff or something like that. But he's been a valuable contributor. And boy, the Diamondbacks could use that right now, Jack. They need more people like Slade Cecconi, not less right now.
Yeah, I mean, his FIP is 4.30. His xFIP was 3.90 following today's start. So I think it's reasonable to say that, he's not a 3.38 ERA pitcher at this juncture. Anyone looking at just the raw ERA, extrapolating that and expecting that going forward probably is going to miss the mark there. These underlying metrics, these expected metrics, are actually more predictive of future ERA than ERA itself. That's been fairly well established through all the studies. So I know a lot of people get annoyed when we talk about these numbers, but again, we're not talking about past value or how to vote in the Cy Young Award. We're talking about what to expect going forward, how to project forward. And so it's likely that, Slade will post something closer to a 4 something ERA going forward than a low 3s. But even a 4 ERA is a very functional major league pitcher capable of being your 4th or 5th starter in this league. And that's something that the Diamondbacks surely could have used this year from a young player would still have minor league options. But they do have Josh Naylor, so we're not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. Josh Naylor is having a very good season for the Diamondbacks at the plate. And hopefully, that will continue going forward.
Moving on here to this next series that the Diamondbacks have in front of them, Jack. It's against the Chicago White Sox. It is the second of 3 series that we've circled on the calendar as being great opportunities for the D-backs to make up some ground in the standings. The White Sox come into this series at 25-53. They are not as abysmal as they were a year ago, but they are still not great. However, Jack, they did just win 2 out of 3 in Toronto against the Blue Jays, something the Diamondbacks were unable to do earlier in the week. This is a more competent team than you maybe picture in your head when you think White Sox. So another opportunity here for the Diamondbacks to gain some ground in the standings, and we'll see if they're able to take advantage of that.
Repeating what I just said a little earlier about expectations, the expectation should not have been to go into Coors Field and sweep the Rockies, although many people had that expectation. It just wasn't reasonable. The same applies here. The White Sox win 1/3 of their games. The odds are that they're going to win at least one of these ball games. They're at home. They have some pretty good, decent pitching. They're playing a little better of late. You just never know what's going to happen in any one game in baseball. My expectation is that the D-backs win the series. They still have enough good pitching and enough good hitting going. Even if Corbin Carroll misses the series, they still should win this series. But let's be realistic, folks. We should not go into this saying, anything less than a sweep against the lowly White Sox is a disaster and unacceptable. And, dial it down. Winning 2 out of 3 is more than acceptable. Losing 2 out of 3 would not be.
I think that's fair. The idea of setting expectations at 2 out of 3. I will also say at the same time, though, that there does come a point when the Diamondbacks might need to start sweeping some teams if they are going to go where they want to go, right? I mean, this is a team that has, I think we checked before hopping on the show, it was like 28% playoff odds over at Fangraphs. Like, if you're just taking 2 out of 3 against the worst teams in the league every time, that doesn't exactly bode well for you in making up ground on, the 4 teams right now that are separating the D-backs from that third wild card spot. So while I'm very much with you, Jack, that I think 2 out of 3 is probably, on paper what the baseline expectation should be, D-backs are going to need to start exceeding that baseline expectation at a certain point in order to actually gain up the ground that they need to. Granted, we're still in the first half of the season. There's still plenty of time for them to make that move. Some interesting things about this White Sox team, Jack. We have on the screen here that their team OPS is 636. This is the worst offensive team in all of baseball. And their team ERA, on the other hand, is 4.21. That ranks 22nd in baseball. The White Sox have a better starting rotation than the Diamondbacks do, and they also have a better bullpen than the Diamondbacks do. However, as you said on our last show, Jack, doesn't everyone have a better bullpen than the Diamondbacks? And that is mostly the case.
Well, hopefully the recent trend for the Diamondbacks evens that out a little bit. Certainly their current bullpen ERA is roughly a run higher than the White Sox. So, we'll see how that goes. But they're going to face a pretty darn good pitcher in the first game with going against Smith. He's got a 2.85 ERA, and he's got pretty decent peripherals to match. So Erod, who trended somewhat positively in his last start as far as results were concerned, is going to have to continue along that path. If you notice there, for Eduardo Rodriguez, the gap between his ERA and FIP is now shrunk to about a 1.5. Before that was about 2. So, let's just keep moving in the forward direction, and they should have a pretty good chance. But expect Shane Smith to pitch a pretty decent ball game because he's been doing that an awful lot lately. Ryan Nelson, I think that he's, really looked good in his last start, and I expect more of the same from him. That fastball had a lot of life at the top of the zone. He was, throwing strikes again. I think the start prior to that was more of an anomaly. As far as the last game, Tyler Alexander is actually making his first start for the White Sox. If he goes in this game, maybe it'll be an opener situation. I'm not completely sure there. He's only thrown 11 innings since moving over to the White Sox, so we'll have to see what happens with that game. And we don't know what to expect from Zach Gallen. So between those 3 games, the White Sox having their best starter going in the first game, and the D-backs arguably having their worst starter going in the last game, it's, you just can't book these and say, yeah, the D-backs should waltz in there and sweep. Just, they have one of the worst pitching staffs in the league, and you just never know which game that's going to blow up on them.
Yeah, I guess on the other side, we are talking about one of the best offenses in the league against the worst offense in the league. So you'd certainly hope that would be a significant advantage for the Diamondbacks over the course of the series. We'll see how things progress here over the next few days as the D-backs continue this little window in the schedule where they're playing some of the lesser teams around the league. To finish things off here, Jack, unfortunately, there somehow is more injury news. We could have done an entire hour-long show probably just talking about injuries, but Tommy Henry, who we had heard recently was seeking a second opinion, gathering more information about the state of his elbow. He is having regular old Tommy John surgery, so you're probably looking at him being out the rest of this season, as well as probably all of next year, at least most of next year. And then we also got word that AJ Puk, who just had his surgery, he had the brace procedure, which has a slightly lesser recovery time than regular old Tommy John surgery, but it's a silver lining, Jack, but not much of a silver lining. We're still not expecting to see AJ Puk until probably around the All-Star break next year.
Correct. And also Justin Martinez is having his surgery on either Tuesday or Wednesday of this week with Dr. Keith Meister. So, those are 3 guys that you're not going to see the rest of this year. And in the case of Puk and Martinez, hopefully sometime around the All-Star break, like you just said. One other injury note, Geraldo Perdomo has been playing through an injured finger, and that he hurt while fielding, actually. And that seems to have been what's really caused his slump at the plate. And it happened in the Atlanta series. So this happened a while ago and kind of very much dovetails. And he's refusing to come out of the lineup because he feels himself that he's too important to the team to be out there every day at shortstop. Very hard to argue with that position. But when we talk about having one of the best offenses in the league, they're down Gabriel Moreno. They're potentially down Corbin Carroll for this series. Geraldo Perdomo is playing compromised. So there's some weak spots developing in this offense. And now that they're out of Coors Field, it's going to be interesting to see, how the rest of this plays out over the next few weeks and whether the offense is going to be able to continue to average 5 runs a game.
Yeah, this Rockies series was weird where they had that insane breakout on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, the offense really did not do a whole lot. Certainly the Sunday game where the D-backs just scored 2 runs. So see if they're able to turn things around on that front. Well, that is all that we have for this episode of Snakes Territory. We very much appreciate all of you being here with us. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, like this video, and drop a comment. We would love to hear from you. If you haven't already, you can find us on social media. I am at Jesse N. Friedman. Over on X, Jack is at ShoeWizard59, and our show is at Snakes Territory. Jack does a great job covering the Diamondbacks over at si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks. So be sure to look out for his work as well as the work of his other writers over there. Jack, any other thoughts here as we finish out this show and set the table for another week of D-backs baseball?
Keep your hopes up, folks. It's not too late for the team to continue to improve and put themselves in a better position. There's still a long ways to go. They got to get to about 85, 90 wins and hope a few of the other teams move back towards them. This is still very doable.
Diamondbacks, as we stand right now, are 3.5 games behind that third wild card spot. They have the Reds, Cardinals, and Padres all separating them sitting between them and that third wild card spot as we sit right now. Should be it's always a fun ride with this baseball team, Jack. They never seem to. The moment you think that they're really in, then they go on some sort of a slump, and then the moment you think they're out of it, then they start to win again, and it's like, oh, maybe this team does have a shot. So I have a feeling this roller coaster ride is not going to be ending anytime soon. But yes, thank you again to all of you for being with us. We really appreciate your time, and we'll be back with another episode of Snakes Territory very, very soon.